This is about storytelling. So storytelling mastery. I'll start today with picture formats and the normal formats. And to do that, I need to tell you a story. Then you see once upon a time, one day, the other day, because, after that, and finally. Once upon a time, in Kinshasa, Limete, the capital of DR Congo. Now Limete is the industrial and residential town, well known for being the residential and the headquarters of the charismatic leader Etienne Tshisekedi wa Mulumba. In that town, there was a young boy. His name was the Big D. Now the Big D was a student who had a great focus to finish his study, but without financial support. So he made himself an entrepreneur, and his church appointed him to be a pastor. And in the process, the Big D forgot to get married. So his family was worried about him. So as good Africans, they put pressure on him to get married. One day, from one of his shops, he saw a young, beautiful lady named Esther. His heart started to beat fast, and his hair started to dance and jump as he looked at this young lady passing with her parents. Hey, this young man has found love. Immediately, he closed the shop to follow her from a distance and in a secret, to find out where she came to visit. Then he discovered that they just bought a house where he used to study from. Every day, he started doing the same exercise in the evening to see, hey, Esther, that beautiful girl. And because of that, company of her parents, he couldn't talk to her directly. So he waited for schools to reopen. Once school reopened, there was another challenge. What was that? She had found a friend, Miss R. Yo. That friend didn't like the Big D at all. And because of that, Esther, the beautiful girl, couldn't say yes to Big D. So the Big D waited for 2 years. Then another 2 years, he went back to her and he spoke to her directly as per miracle on a miracle day. Then she promised to give him a call as he went back to see her again after 4 years. She said, I will give you back a call. And when she called, the news was so bad. She said, my parents said no to marrying you. So the Big D was devastated. He went back and waited for another 2 years. After that, the Big D waited again, and it was 6 years. He waited, and he came, Esther. Hey, you know girls most. They have to say no first before saying yes. This time, she accepted for a date and gave a day to come to a date. Big D was so happy that he sang love song the whole night, and he made some poems, not knowing that she was going to break his heart. Why that? In that restaurant, After eating, she said, I have found a fiancé. Do not bother me anymore. Ish, the big D heart could come out. His heart was wrestling. So he went back devastated. And he tried to find love somewhere else. But he couldn't find. And his family decided to go ahead without his consent and marry another girl. Then they proposed to Big D. They said, take this girl and we'll give you a house well finished. Then the Big D refused. And he ran away from his family. The seventh year, Esther, the beautiful girl, and the yellowborn came to Big D. But this time she came to ask for employment. Guess for who? For that lady who didn't like Mr. D at all. But he accepted and employed her. And then Esther disappeared again for another year. Then it was 8 years. Finally, she came. This time crying as she saw the Big D. Then the Big D said, well, why are you crying? She said, no. She explained, I spoke to my mom. I cried and I begged her. Then she said yes. And she went and convinced my father, who also said yes to marrying you. They both cried. They both cried for the journey they started 8 years ago. And finally, it was there. So, my friend, know what you want in life. Make some commitments for achieving it. Take massive action. Be resilient. And never quit. Thank you.